Well, let's start this up. Welcome everybody to the June 6th, 2023 edition of the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals. All members are participating remotely. That would be Mr. Tanzi, myself, Mr. Rosa, Mr. Baker Sr., and I know again that Mr. Baker Jr. is running late, and I know that Steve, I think, was going to be running late also. So knowing that, and knowing that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Myself is yes. Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Okay, let me read the legal ad. 6:30 p.m. remotely conducted continuance public hearing on the petition filed under Chapter 40B comprehensive permit by Shingle Mill LLC, care of Conoco, 41st Street, Bridgewater, Mass. 02324, to allow the construction of 236 units of residential housing of the project within two 5-story buildings on approximately 29.33 acres of land located at 0 Pond Street and 152 Wilson Street, the site. The applicant is proposing 25% of the units to be classified as affordable as per Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. The site is located on 0 Pond Street, Lot 13.9, and 152 Wilson Street, Lot 68, Map 10. A copy of this application materials, plans, and other documents are available upon request electronically from the town clerk by dialing 781-871-1874 and talk to the town clerk. So there we go. Let me just make certain here. I got a, let's see, Steve's trying to get online, so I'm sure he'll be here momentarily. And again, I know that Bob Baker Jr., he's in traffic at this point. So I guess what we can do is open it up to the applicant. I don't know who wants to start here, because what it comes right down to is the last submission. All the documents from the last submission, if you want to go over those, and then we can see what's happening with all the other, again, the town departments that came in and weighed in on the last round of reviews. So who wants to start with the applicant?
Walter Marioni here.
Attorney Marioni, how you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Attorney Galvin. Again, for the record, Walter Marioni. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Marioni, Shaughnessy, and Udy. I have with me this evening, I believe, Mr. Lincoln, Rick Lincoln, who's the project proponent, and representing Conoco, Damian Dimitrick and Mike Toohill. So I think our plan of attack is exactly what you just said. Turn it over to Damian, let him go through the work that's been done since the last meeting, working with Mr. Brennan. And then, Mr. Chairman, you can guide us from there. We'll go at your pace and in your direction.
I appreciate that, Attorney Marioni. What I'm going to ask from the general public is, and let's see, I'm seeing a couple names here. We don't have your full name, and we don't know who you are. So where you've got the JDTHE and iPad, that needs to be changed to whoever you are, so we know who you are, so we know who we're dealing with. Everybody that I know who we're dealing with that I need to change, I'm changing. But the people that I don't know, you gotta do it. So I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes to do so, and if not, I'm gonna bounce you. So as Mr. Hanson said, yeah, I'm gonna bounce you. So Damian, where are you?
Right here.
All right, talk to me, sir. Turn your camera on so we can see your unkempt hair.
My camera should be on. Are you guys not seeing me? Am I not appearing?
Nope.
Because my camera does, I appear on my screen. Am I the only one not seeing me? Or is everyone else seeing me? Are you seeing me?
Nope. You're so embarrassed that you don't want to show your face.
I apologize. To avoid delay to this, is it okay if I maintain as such?
Or why not?
I apologize. Again, I apologize. My camera does appear on my screen. It's very odd. Nonetheless, I'll screen share so that people have something to look at. Let me go over to now. Is everyone looking at my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So since the last revision that was submitted prior to the last meeting, we had not made any new submissions of the main civil site plans. We had, just recently received peer review comments from Pat Brennan on May 30th. And we are going through, the modifications and changes per those comments. A lot of the requests were for, an updated waivers list, updated resource area impacts, landscaping plans. We'll have to provide an updated traffic management average daily trips count. So, that information will be provided to Pat. We'll come up with a formal response to comments letter and
Okay.
work through those issues. But in the interim of that submission, since our last submission, we have provided some additional graphics and plans, along the lines of, showing the locations of some local road improvements, some parking expansion concepts, the extension, a better graphic of the Sewer Street extension, a wetlands waiver list, revised architecturals, an overview of the wells, some parking ratios. So there's been some more, I like to call them presentation type documents that are a little bit easier to read and understand. I can go into more depth on any of those. Obviously those were received, I believe, last week. So again, I assume the board members are, still reviewing through them and haven't had too much of a chance to dive into them. But I'd love to, if there's any current, questions or information that would like to be reviewed, I can definitely pull that up on the screen. I don't know if I need to necessarily go into the nitty gritty on each of those plans.
All right, so talk to me about this, the local road improvements. Show me that plan.
Yeah. So, this is, very conceptual, just to show the layout, of the abutting roads that our client Rick has agreed to make improvements on, general mill and pave, cleaning of the sites, getting them to a better, into a slightly better condition. He's going to be working with the DPW to kind of, determine what that would be. But this, plan to kind of show that these streets, are going to receive some upgrades and improvements, based on how Rick is able to coordinate that with the DPW.
Okay, is DPW giving you any idea as to the level that they're looking? I mean, other than just a mill and pave on this, are we looking at raising structures, or what are we looking at?
We're still in coordination on that effort. This is again just a simplified plan. It's our existing conditions with some highlighted, showing the areas that we were, intention some improvements to come upon.
All right, so there have been discussions with the highway department superintendent.
From my understanding, that is accurate. I believe Rick has reached out and those conversations have begun.
Okay, is Rick here that he can confirm this?
I saw him on here a second ago.
I just want to make sure that that somebody's going on record saying that these communications have happened.
Hi, Chairman. This is Rick Lincoln.
Mr. Lincoln, what's going on, sir?
Well, I did meet with Dave Taylor actually today.
Okay.
And I had planned on a mill and repave of everything shown, which was the original conversation. Whenever, a year and a half ago. Certainly Wilson Street in conjunction with proposed sewer But Dave had mentioned that there's an issue with drainage over on Curry and what is
Right.
that? Right. Where they have to go out and jet vac, once or twice a year.
Mhm.
So I told him I agreed verbally. Today, it's like, we don't know what the issue is. He
Mhm.
seems to think it may be, some old pipes, maybe some, the pitch isn't enough. So I told him that I agreed that we would at least research it and I'd fix it if I can. I think it drains down our site, at the end of Wright Street there.
Yep.
And Dave said he was going to ship me some of their GIS information because I don't know how much information Conoco has,
Mhm.
for, we didn't get into the drainage on those streets, but that was as of this afternoon. So we had a limited discussion on sidewalks and I had instructed Conoco. We did quite a bit of work out there with surveying and zoomed in plans, and we've all decided that that's obviously a project that's requires a lot of eminent domain. There's just not enough room out there. So we tabled that and he agreed with that. So,
Okay.
and that's it.
All right. So that's the first day. That's the first thing that I wanted to make sure happened. And it has. All right. Damien, I'll let you pick from your list. You have a bunch of stuff that got submitted. So if you
Okay.
want to picking and choosing at this point, that was my main concern.
Okay. What I can do is I'll jump in and throw kind of the main points, the more interesting concepts here. So this is what it was a larger conversation at the last meeting associated with the parking and the parking counts associated with that. As provided in the plans, I will actually provide. Rick has gone through and provided calculations for some of the other developments that he's already done, have been completed, approved, are either in the permitting process here, and the parking ratios and per unit and per bedroom count associated. You can see the shingle mill highlighted here is in the ranges of those apartment, those current projects, other projects that Rick has permitted through the same process. But as an additional, presentation to the board here, we do have, our current layout shown in, the gray and black plan here. We have added in some potential future parking expansion concepts, to allow in if there ever was an issue to expand upon the parking there. Obviously, there need to be drainage updates and everything accordingly to these expansions. But this is all in the area that would be just a grass landscaped area over here that we were proposing, so we just have to make those adjustments and come in front of the boards and go through the processes for those priority, but just to show where that, if necessary, which we don't believe at this time, it would be so, there is room to add parking to the site in those locations there.
Okay. Well, before you go any further, I know that at the last meeting, Mr. Tanzi brought up, I think it was a MIPA permit or something, Mr. Tanzi. What was that? What was that you were talking about when it came down to the number of parking spaces?
Yeah, the site does trigger MIPA. It's also triggers it because there's a trip generation of over 1,000 vehicle trips per day. So there's a number of things that do trigger the MIPA with the parking.
Mr.
So-
Dimitrick, do you agree with this?
I recall Mr. Tanzia bringing that up at the last meeting, and we understand that the triggers and thresholds for MIPA. I believe the daily traffic counts Pat references in his review letter. Those have been adjusted. I'm not 100% sure the traffic counts that Pat had, where that come from, if that's a previous But we, per our more recent iterations with the reduced unit counts and parking, we believe that we're also underneath that threshold of 1,000 daily trips per day, or average daily trips. Again, understand that the thresholds exist, but at this moment, we do not believe that we have surpassed those.
Pat Brennan, do you how do you feel on this? Can I tap your brain on this?
Sure. The count that I came up with was 1,082 average daily trips, and that was based on the 199 residential units. And I believe the multiplier from the ITE manual was 4.85 per unit, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
But I believe that's what it was, and that's how I came up with it, because they had 236. I forget exactly what it is. I have to look and see what the calculation is, but I took the same multiplier that they had on the 236 units and applied it to the 199, and it was down to the 1,082 trips.
So based on those numbers, again, Mr. Tanzi, you're confident that it's going to trigger a MEPA?
Well, yeah. There's got to be some type of a MEPA filing. They're going to need more than 300 or 299 spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I reviewed the ratios and of different projects that were submitted, but I've also reviewed, I don't know what those projects were, but they were substantially smaller than this project. Projects of this size have typically had at least 2 spaces, per unit. And the buildings these size, they're going to have to be maintained. There's going to be people coming in, cleaning halls, repairing this, groundskeepers, etc. You're going to have people who are going to have visitors. Every one of those parking spaces is a compact parking space. Not everybody is going to drive a compact car. I mean, people have SUVs, they have pickup trucks, they have just larger vehicles than a compact car. I mean, that's just livability. That's just a factor of life that we have to provide for. If we don't provide for that, you're going to have, people double park. There's going to be a problem with emergency vehicles or access. So I mean, I'm convinced that there's going to be some type of a MEPA trigger.
So currently right now, I'm sorry, Greg, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just currently right now, how many, Mr. Dimitrick, how many parking spaces are proposed? What was it? 299? 299. Okay. So when you're talking about future parking expansion, you're not talking about doing that. You're not talking about doing that now. You're talking about later on.
Correct.
You tell you so okay. Okay. So based on that, you're still under the parking requirement for a MEPA filing. But yet the trip generation still kicks you into it. This is what I'm hearing.
So we do have a forthcoming letter from Bowman traffic engineers. It's the group McMahon that originally had produced. They were bought out. From my conversations with them, we are underneath that number, and we'll provide that information to Pat you know, so it's for him to review and such. So, you know, that is a forthcoming letter that will be presented to the board to show, you know, the average daily trips. So I think that responds to that question for you.
So all of that, so basically all of that information is still up in the air.
Yeah, they're currently working on it. Yeah.
All right, next.
Mr. Chairman, can I just chime in on that for one moment, please, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
So just a couple of things, and I won't get into the traffic count because I think that was just adequately covered. But with respect to the parking spaces, Mr. Lincoln believes, based upon his experience in developing these similar projects, that the number proposed is sufficient. There's no question that that number is one below the threshold. Forgetting all the other issues dealing with MEPR and state action and what triggers it and all of that, I don't think that matters for the reason I'll go to at the end. But we heard what Mr. Tanzi had to say, and we respect what Mr. Tanzi had to say. So we talked about the idea, because we've done this on other projects, and I can think of one project that Mr. Lincoln is involved in. We have this area where if it turns out that the parking is not sufficient, that we can create and build additional parking. And that's the purpose for that area that is being discussed. So that it's not, the board is not held to the parking that's here now. If it becomes a problem, there is a solution to the problem. But with respect to MEPA is simply handled through a condition. If it turns out that something does trigger MEPA, then the applicant has to file with MEPA, and that's simply a condition in a comp permit. It's not something more than that this board has to deal with. This board simply includes a condition that says if something triggers MEPA, then you know whether you put that in a condition or not doesn't matter. That's what the applicant is held to, right? That's the regulation. That's not a local permit that a comp permit covers. So dealing with MEPA in terms of filing, if it's required, no problem. Just our position right now is based upon the information we have. We don't believe that it is triggered, but we've heard what people have said. We've spoken to the traffic consultant on the counts. He's looked at it quickly, and I shouldn't say quickly. I don't know how long he looked at it for. I don't know how long it took, but what the time that he did spend, we don't have it in writing yet other than in an email. He doesn't believe we've tripped that. But in fairness, you know, Pat's made his comments, Mr. Tanzi has made his comments, and we're going to get the information and provide it to you both.
And that's why I say the answer to the question is still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, you and I agree. I just wanted to make it clear that we're not listening to you.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
Sorry for the double negative.
No, that's fine. This is not a grammar lesson here.
All right, thank you. I'll be quiet now and go back to Damien.
Damien, going to
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Baker Senior. Yes,
we got a letter from Pat, dated May 30th.
Mm-hmm.
In paragraph 4, is talking about the MEPA.
Mm-hmm.
In his response, and if I may read it.
Absolutely.
The project as proposed will require the application to file an environmental notice form, ENF, with the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, MEPA, since it will trigger the MEPA review threshold 301 CMR 11.30 6B14. This requirement requires submission of an ENF for a project that will generate 1,000 or more new average daily trips on roadways, providing access to a single location and construction of 150 or more new parking spaces at a single location. The project proponent proposes 299 parking spaces in 199 residential units, which will generate 82 average daily trips to this location.
Mr. Brennan, did you write that?
Yes, I did.
I know you did, sir. This is what it comes down to. That is Pat's professional opinion. What the applicant is saying, that based on their engineer's professional opinion, they don't agree. So it sounds like their engineer has to review it just a little bit more to come up with a formal determination as to how they feel. And again, as Attorney Marioni said, and I agree with this, that regardless of the situation, we would have to condition it as such anyway. So at this point, we know the whole point is that we as a board know that this is a thing. This is important. This is something that's going to happen. So because there's not a definitive on it yet, I'm not going to worry about it. I know that we as a board would, if there's an approval, then this is something that would have to be conditioned in. So, regardless of who agrees to what, it's still going to have to, pass muster in the end. So, and does that kind of speak to your point, Mr. Baker Senior?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Damien, talk to me about next something next that you submitted for us.
Okay.
You're talking about total number of bedrooms, and in the end, the reason why we wanted to know, at least why I wanted to know, total number of bedrooms was to confirm that we're looking at sewerage flows. Because as far as I know, and again, the civil engineers and the anybody who understands sewer at this point, I believe it's 110 gallons per day per bedroom that they're looking at. Mr. Tanzi, Pat Brennan, I do believe I saw one of the sewer commissioners here. Does that sound right? The 110 gallons per day per bedroom? Anybody?
Yes, that's right.
That's
That's
the
correct.
5 flow.
All right, everybody's talking about the same. Everybody's looking at the same number then. Damien, is that how you guys were calculating it?
Yeah, that would be the same way that we've been calculating, any sewer flows that we're anticipating for the time. So, this is that bedroom count that you were referencing. I assume that everybody's still staring at my screen.
Yep. So again, we got, would we say 315? Is that what it was? 174.
Yeah.
151,
Yeah, 315 would be the total bedroom count.
110, 34,650 gallons per day. That's basically what we're looking at.
Correct.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to recognize Sewer Commissioner Chuck Hession. You there, Chuck?
Yes, I am.
You specifically asked to speak at this, and I'd like to give you that opportunity. I know you wrote a letter to the zoning board. I'll be quite honest, I didn't read it because I knew you were going to read it tonight. So
I'm disappointed, Rob.
So through me, Mr. Hession, please, address the group and let us know what. Let's hear your thoughts, sir.
Okey-doke, I wrote a letter and it's addressed to Mr. Roser and the zoning board members. And it reads as follows. Based on my understanding of 310 CMR 22-20B, section 3A, surface water supply protection be within the zone A of all surface water supplies tributaries defined in 310-15. The State Environmental Code, Title V, standard requirements for the siting, construction, inspection, upgrade and expansion of on-site sewage treatment and disposal systems, and for the transport and disposal of septage within the zone A, B, and C shall be in compliance with the requirements of 310 CMR 15.
The proposed development at 0 Pond Street, known as Shingle Mill, does not meet the exemptions listed. Specifically, all sewer lines and appurtenances are prohibited except as required to eliminate existing or potential pollution to the water supply, or where the crossing of tributaries is necessary to construct a public sewer system. Proposed sewer connection at 0 Pond Street does not eliminate an existing or potential pollution to the water supply. On the contrary, the potential pollution would be created by the installation of a private property sewer connection, a lateral, and with age, blockage, or breaks in the installed connection, the harmonic alteration of the subsurface could lead to the creation of a preferential pathway, which may and may not lead to any underlying unknown groundwater problems migrating from the site, causing potential environmental pollution problems. 2, the development at 0 Pond Street is not constructing a public sewer. Rather, they are proposing the creation of a private lateral to connect to the existing public sewer system, which by regulation, the laterals are the property of the landowner and not the public sewer system. The project at 0 Pond Street also increases the risk of potential problem in altering the groundwater table and groundwater flow by raising the elevation and installing subsurface construction. This alteration not only holds potential for flooding abutting properties, but also puts additional pressure strain on the older vitrified clay pipes in the immediate area, all of which are 65 years or older and service both water and sewer. At a meeting with the Rockland town officials and town council on May 5th, 2022, the EPA director of compliance stated that Rockland is not suffering from just a severe I&I problem. They also have a serious overcapacity situation. As a direct result of that meeting, and for neglecting to take adequate corrective action to the original administrative order issued to the town and the Rockland Sewer Department in September 29, 2006, the EPA has placed the town of Rockland and the Rockland Sewer Department under an EPA administrative finding of violation in order. This took place in June of 2022 for repeated flow violations due to overcapacity conditions. This order has mandated conditions of compliance, forcing the sewer department and sewer commissioners to place a strict moratorium on new connections. On April 25th, 2023, a letter was sent by the sewer commissioners to all boards, the building department and the Rockland Board of Selectmen, stating that due to our current capacity issues at the wastewater treatment plant, we will not be accepting any applications for new connections that contribute more than 440 gallons a day during the next fiscal year. On July 1st, 2022, the EPA informed the town of Rockland and the Rockland Sewer Department that we will be fined for violations to the 2006 order, and that the EPA will be monitoring our compliance to the 2022 administrative order and notice of violations. I also want to point out in 310 CRMR 22.20B section 7C under enforcement, it further states the department, Mass DEP, may take enforcement actions against any public water system who fails to carry out its enforcement responsibilities under 310 CMR 22.20B, or may enforce directly against persons violating 310 CMR 22.20B. Now, whereas the town of Rockland and the Rockland Sewer Department are under a direct EPA administrative order for violations of compliance, approval of this project by the ZBA would place the town and sewer department in jeopardy of increased additional fines. The sewer department currently has a pre-approved waiting list of project-ready connections, which will add another 28,365 gallons a day of flow to the system that must connect with the next availability. To comply with the EPA order, the Rockland Sewer Department must remove 312,000 gallons a day of additional inflow and infiltration before any additional connections can be made. As of today, our current 12-month rolling average is 2.6 million gallons a day. Again, our maximum allowable permit discharge is set at 2.5 million gallons a day, which continues to place us in violation of the EPA's administrative order. For the reasons and conditions stated in this letter to the Rockland ZBA, the project located at 0 Pond Street, known as Shingle Mill, should not reasonably be allowed to connect to the Rockland sewer system. I'd be glad to discuss this matter in open session with the board wishes to do so. Sincerely, Charles Hessian.
Thank you, Mr. Hessian. I appreciate that. Mr. Dimitra, can you show me on screen what the current thought is when it comes to connecting to the Rockland public sewer system? Okay, so now before this was going down the causeway out in the Pond Street, is that correct?
That's Wilson Street, Rob.
Or is that that's Wilson? Yeah, I know. They want to connect. They want to connect to Wilson Street, but I thought you guys were coming down to Pond Street first.
I myself do not recollect that design. I'm not saying that did not occur at one time, maybe with the other engineering, and it could have been in the original. But yes, our current proposal is for the connection through Wilson Street.
Down Wilson Street. Okay. Based on what Mr. Hessian said, and I think other people have said the same thing, that connection is not allowed because it's in the Zone A.
Can I take this one too, please?
Please go for it.
It's a similar answer, right? So the letter that Mr. Hessian just read was shared with us a short time ago, so we haven't had an opportunity to digest it.
Exactly. As
you just pointed out, though, at the last meeting, I believe it was Mr. Tanzi again raised some of these issues. So we've been looking at this. We took the position at the last meeting that we don't necessarily agree, but we also agreed that we'd take a look at it. So we've done that. We're doing that. We need to do it a little more now because now there's a little more information provided and we want to give it the respect it deserves. But in context, you know, we don't deny and we understand that ultimately the sewer connection has to be approved by the sewer department and the sewer commission.
And again, it's by the zoning board.
It's a condition by this board. And I just want to remind you that Mr. Lincoln met a ways back now with the sewer folks and was working towards, and I believe had agreed to a fairly substantial contribution that would result in a very significant improvement on the I&I. I mean, it was, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was
somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 mil.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think it was a little under. I don't want to give you an exact number because I don't remember. So I only bring that up now to say that, to acknowledge that we're aware of the issue, maybe not quite to the extent that Mr. Hessian just explained, but maybe we were. It's a little beyond my scope. So, you know, it's another thing that, you know, we'll give it the respect that it deserves and we'll look at it. But ultimately, there's no hiding the fact that we have to deal with the sewer department and the sewer commission.
Yep. No, and again, as you stated, this is something that can be conditioned. If it came down to it, is something that can be conditioned by the zone. So it's not something that we're determining. It's not.
Understood. Agreed. Agreed. We agree.
That we're giving.
But we do want to give Mr. Hessian's letter the respect it deserves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was my biggest concern, that a lot of stuff kind of came in that I knew your team wouldn't have the opportunity to really digest and be able to come up with some responses to it. So that's as long as we're on the same page. This is
and if we can give color to it for the next meeting, we will. If it's something that we need to deal with aside from the meeting and deal with the commission and the sewer department directly, we'll do that too, or maybe both.
Just out of curiosity, is Miss Cameron here from the water department, from the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks? I know she sent in a couple of letters. Attorney Marioni, did you guys get there was 2 letters from the waterworks? Did you get a copy of those?
We do have the letters. We do
Okay,
have the
so
letters.
again, it's another situation where, again, they came in, and have you had time to review any of this? Have you had time to? I didn't think so.
No.
No, I didn't think so.
And we are going through the process with DEP on the well testing and I think those 2 things are going on a parallel track and are going to come together pretty quickly.
Okay. Let's see if I can come on. I have her letter here. Did you read here? Numerous groundwater recharge basins for stormwater recharge. Good house kit. Actually, Greg, either Greg or Pat. A lot of this stuff, because it's strictly civil engineering stuff, it starts to go over my head. Have either of the 2 of you read the Crystal's letters? And is there any chance you guys can speak to any of these?
I did read through her letter. I did review it. I don't necessarily want to speak on it right now. I'd kind of like to see what the applicant's response is first.
Understood.
A lot of the things that she's citing is for new and expanded water protection areas, and this is an existing water protection area.
Okay. All right.
I understand the points and I agree with some of them, but I just don't want to really speak to it right now until I get a better understanding.
No, again, because again, a lot of this stuff came in too late for anybody to really, wrap their heads around. Again, and I'm not going to apologize for this, but a lot of this stuff, when it comes to it, goes over my head. This is civil engineering. I'm not a civil engineer, yeah. So both sides have to look at this to kind of digest it. That's understood. Let's see. Anything else was there anything else that came in? Mr. Dimitrick, is there anything else that you guys, that your team can at least start to address from everything that's come in thus far?
I think, you've been accurate with, how you've been stating it. Things have just come in. We're still digesting, working through, the comments and everything to that aspect. So I don't, think we need to necessarily speak about any of them individually at this time.
All right, because everybody's still looking at this.
Rob,
right. Yes.
there was a letter from the police chief, May 11th,
You have that?
2023, yes.
You read that?
Yeah. Based on my review of most recent plans on the Shingle Mills project, I would like to make the following recommendation. It is my recommendation that a dedicated right-hand lane traveling south on Pond Street from Hingham Street be created so that vehicles utilizing that lane can enter the complex by taking a right-hand turn. This will allow for free traffic flow past the entrance and lessen the potential congestion in the area. I am also of the opinion that consideration be made for the construction of a pedestrian sidewalk on the west side of Pond Street as you exit the site. This sidewalk should be able to connect to the existing sidewalk on the west side of Pond Street. Lastly, it is my understanding that the construction of the site requires substantial delivery of fill material. With this in mind, the developer should consider scheduling the deliveries so that they do not affect the traffic flow during peak times, such as in the morning and the afternoon rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
The developer should be willing to consider police details if necessary to assist any potential traffic issues around the site during construction. This could be coordinated with the police department on an as-needed basis. That was it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dimitrick, you have a copy of that? I thought I thought I saw you trying to get to it, but do you have
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I can, so we have the,
I just want to make sure you have. Yeah, that's
yeah, we
really.
have it. We have it. It exists.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Other than that, was there another? Deb, where are you? Right there, I see you. Did we get a formal letter from Dave Taylor at this point?
No,
I
we
saw
did
it. No, not yet. Is there anybody else that we got letters from that the applicant may or may not have?
No,
All right, so water, sewer, police, those are the only ones that have responded to our call, correct?
correct. Since the last hearing, yes.
Okay, all right. Because we put out a calling for everybody else, and those are the only ones. I'm assuming that pursuant to this meeting that Mr. Lincoln had with Mr. Taylor, I'm assuming that he's going to put together something. I'll try and talk to him off the record and get him to put together a letter for everybody, for basically some sort of suggestion letter. So what it comes down to is, board members, do we want to talk about continuing one last time to give the applicant time to basically address everything that's come up so far, and then potentially something from Dave Taylor, because he's the only other guy that I really think we need to talk to. Is that something we want to entertain at this point? Don't everybody talk at once.
Is this gonna be,
Attorney, since you guys didn't talk, I'm going to the applicant's attorney here. Attorney Marioni, I'm making a suggestion that maybe we go one more time just to give you guys the opportunity to digest everything that's come in. Does that sound fair?
100%. We'll submit another response to Pat, and that'll include these other items, and the board will obviously have a copy of that, and that we can discuss that at the next meeting. I defer to Damien as to how long he needs. But yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Just want to give you as a board, we have to give you the opportunities. Not giving you the opportunities it just wouldn't work. So if we'll give you the opportunity for one more shot. Board members, that comes down to Mr. Tanzi, Mr. Baker, and myself at this point. How do you guys feel?
Rob, do we want to send Mr. Lincoln these 2 letters from the abutters?
As far as I know, we already got them.
I think we have them.
So
They came in today.
Deb sent us a bunch of documents. If there's something new that came in today, then we don't have them. I apologize. The only thing from today that I received was Chuck Hession's letter.
Okay.
Okay, there's one that came in from Nancy Greedon, I believe it is,
I have not seen that.
and Mary Parsons.
I have not seen that one. Okay,
Well, we can
appreciate
forward.
it.
I believe that they're up on the website at this point, but I'm sure that I can. If I ask Deb nicely, she'll be able to forward them to you.
She always does.
Oh, it's because I always ask nicely. Yeah.
Understood.
All right. So if that's reasonable, Pat, what are you thinking?
That's up to them. They're the ones responding at this point.
All right. So again, this is if the applicant wants to do this, board members, you tell me. I can go either way at this point. So, Mr. Baker Senior, you seem to be poking at your screen.
Turn my mute off.
Oh, okay. What are your thoughts here?
So we're into
This is what it
June.
comes down to. Let me lay it down before you say anything. I'm gonna lay it down right now. This has been going on, what, 4 years now?
Yes,
All right. I'm sick of this.
join the club.
Okay, so I believe that if we give the applicant one more shot to kind of just go over this last round and get their full feeling on as to where they stand, I think that's fair. Because there's a lot of other stuff that did come out. The water department has come out and said a lot of things. The sewer department is coming out with a
Yes.
lot of that they need to look at. So my personal feeling is give them one more continuance, let them address the situation, come back, and then next meeting, if nothing else comes out of the woodwork, nothing completely and totally new that we haven't discussed yet, maybe then we entertain the possibility of closing the hearing.
Oh,
Mr.
Rob,
Chairman, if we give them an extension,
Mhm.
could we ask them to, if there's any pertinent information, new information, that we get it in time to read it, like maybe 10 days before the meeting?
This is the problem. We've been asking for submissions to be 2 weeks prior to every hearing. Nobody listens to us. Nobody listens to us, you know, and then it just turns into whatever. So knowing that, Mr. Tanzi, you wanted to speak. Talk to me, sir.
well, I mean, I'm all in favor of giving an applicant adequate time to, respond to comments and make their case and whatnot. But, so I'm not opposed to, giving them another shot at it. But I've got real concerns about the MEPA issue. I mean, the MEPA filing, it's not just a condition. It's a major permit that gets reviewed and scrutinized by regulatory agencies at the state. They might require things to get changed. And if there's a major change in the plan, if the hearing is closed, we don't get to review those changes to the plan. We're kind of bypassed.
Let me just, I'm not trying to interrupt. I'm not trying to shut you down, but Pat, can I talk to you for a second? We talked about this a little bit before the meeting. You have to approve, between you and the building department, you guys have to approve the final design plan, correct?
Yeah, if that's what your conditions say, but even before that, if the plans change due to another process and you guys vote that it's a major change, they have to come back to the board, reopen the public hearing.
Okay, so it still could be if it came down to it and if there was an approval, that could be written in as a condition.
Yeah, well, I mean, any changes to the plans, they have to come back to the board and you guys have to decide whether, I mean, Attorney Galvin obviously can, well, he's probably not here. You guys have to decide whether it's a major or a minor change. And if it's a minor change, you can approve it without a public hearing. If it's a major change, you need to reopen the public hearing for it.
So as a condition, if it came down to it, if we wrote something in, if a NEPA permit is required and then we would need to see a copy of that, or a copy of an approved NEPA permit would have to be provided to the town's reviewing engineer. Does that sound right? Because at least that way we know, and that the permit was sought and whether it was denied or granted, And if it was granted, then certain modifications would have had to be made to the plan, and you would have, and then you would end up having to see that plan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
you could
how
ask
about-
them, you could ask them to just at least advise you as to the MEPA process if they get into that.
Okay. No, Mr. Baker Senior, you were talking?
If this was approved, could we put in a thing that any changes to the submitted plans must be reviewed by the town engineer and land use council?
Mhm.
The chairman, if it has to come back to the board for reconsideration.
No, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, can I address that for a minute?
Absolutely, Attorney Marioni, please do.
So we would expect that there'd be a condition in the permit that says that the final plans are to be approved by the board, and the board can designate, as Mr. Baker Senior just said, certain people. It could be Pat, it can be somebody in-house to be that approval person. The regs, the comprehensive permit regs, the state regs are very clear about what a change is in terms of minor versus a significant change, and the process Pat just described. If it's a minor modification, it still has to come back to the board, and there's a process that the board says, okay, we agree it's minor, you don't have to go forward with a public hearing, no problem. Or if it's what would be considered a significant change, then the board deems it to be a significant change, and then there's a public hearing that's scheduled, and then there's a formal filing with the board. So the regs contemplate what you're describing, and the condition of approval of final plans is in every comp permit that I've seen in the last 15 years belongs in there. Because remember, the idea of a comprehensive permit is that it's supposed to be a more superficial review to get the project going, so that the proponent knows that he has a project that's been approved. And the sort of the details, the devil is in the details, happens post-permit based upon conditions. And if that review, those final plans require a change, then we go through the process that I just described. So we fully expect a condition to that effect.
Right. So
And
again,
we'll work with Attorney Galvin at that point to make sure that that it works for everyone.
yeah, everybody, again, that's really the only thing is that I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Appreciate that. And
How long do we want to give them, Rob?
Deb, what were your thoughts? I thought because of the summer and because of the in July, I think we only had, I'm thinking we don't even do a meeting in July, do we?
We have one meeting in July. I was thinking more like either August 1st or August 15th to give other departments, boards and commissions time to review everything and get comments back to us so that we can get comments to them.
That gives everybody a substantial amount of time, and you guys I don't think anybody on the board's going to complain about that, because that's substantial. That's a substantial amount of time. That's well over a month. Mr. Dimitrick, does that sound about enough time to get you guys together on this?
Yeah, I believe that should be enough time for us to, get our modifications, responses, everything compiled, and then even some time for Pat, to get them back over to Pat, the board, and then give people, time to review those.
Yeah, I just, it's one more chance to kind of get together. It's one more chance to get together and just make certain. Because one of the big things that everybody keeps talking about, and again, it is a major concern. There's this zone A and what you can and can't do in there, and everybody seems to have a different opinion as to what you can and cannot do in the zone A. So that's something that I think we need an absolute definitive on. I'm trying to go through Pat's letter here, and I know Pat, I know you addressed that. I know we talked about this a lot when it comes to the zone A. Do Do you remember where in your last letter you went through the zone A end of it and just said, look, you can't do this, you can't do that?
I'm at 5 in my letter.
Okay. Portion of the proposed sewer main that would convey sewage from the development past through zone A. This is not allowed. The process. Okay, so you've addressed that. Based on that, Pat, is there anything else under the zone A regs that they're proposing that they can't do?
Not that I could tell. They've already moved all of the stormwater
Yep.
out of it. They've moved everything that they needed to out of it, except for that one sewer line is the one remaining item. From what I could
Okay, so that was the one remaining item when it came to the zone A. Everything else has been taken care of.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
If I may comment?
Mr. Tanzi, speak up, sir.
So that's one issue that we have to resolve, but how do we, I mean, we talk about pushing it off till August. There's still a remaining moratorium issue. How do we?
Because Mr. Tanzi, that's not something that we say they can or can't do. That's something that we would have to, let's just brass tacks. If this were to be approved, we would condition it as a public sewer connection must be established and approved by the sewer department and the sewer commissioners. That's it. We don't say whether they can or they can't. We say what they have to do. They got to get rid of their sewer somehow.
Yeah,
And it's up to them to figure out how to do it.
We'll have to specify timelines as to when that, if they have to, provide X amount of flow into the capacity of the plant. I mean, they'll have to do that before they connect into the sewer.
They're gonna have to get an approved sewer connection before they get a building permit.
Yeah.
As far as I know. Granted, that's not my area of expertise, but I would think.
If we approve it, that's gonna be one of my conditions.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But the sheer fact is that.
Sewer and water.
Yeah, sewer and water. We don't approve or disapprove approve or deny rather the connections. We just say whether they have to have them or not.
We agree with that.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Greg, I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. But it comes down to it's not us. We don't say whether they can or they can't.
No, I get it. But we still have the ability to condition it.
Of course we do. We can condition it as such to have a clown dancing on the top of the roofs 24 hours a day. You know what I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
No, I'm not gonna, I'm here to protect the town with
Absolutely.
any type of condition.
Lastly, before I go here, Mr. Galley showed up. I see you, sir. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
And Mr. Baker Jr., I see you too. You beat traffic.
Not by much, but I got here.
All right. So you guys have been hearing what we've been talking about. Obviously, there's letters came in that the applicant and their team have not had enough time to review. Also, information came in that we haven't had time to review. So we're giving them what the suggestion is, give them one more shot. Circle back, I think it was August 1st, I think. Circle back August 1st and then figure it out. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think
Yes, sir.
your point is well taken, that given the time when certain materials were submitted, the applicant needs to be provided with a reasonable time to respond to those. But if I could just ask a procedural question based on something you had mentioned earlier, Mr. Baker, Senior asked for 10 days or a 10-day limit on when materials are requirement. Materials can be submitted in anticipation of the next meeting. Is it my understanding from what you said that we're without the, or not we, but the board is without the authority to mandate that and perhaps not consider anything that is submitted after that required date?
I think that's something that we could talk to the applicant about, guys. I mean, it's been you guys' MO to not get us the stuff in time to really review this. So we're going to tell. I think at
Can I
this
make a
point,
suggestion, if you don't mind?
please.
And I make this based upon, I think I mentioned this to you guys 3 years ago, and probably you forget, but I chaired the Eastern Zoning Board of Appeals for 20 years. And I've done my fair share of comp permits. And one thing I found helpful was when, at a meeting like this, when the engineer and the peer reviewer, if we're going with August 15th, it's unclear to me if we're doing the 15th or the 1st. So Damien in this case says to Pat, I'll get my submittal to you by this date. And Pat says, yeah, that's fine. I can turn it around by that date. And that way there's target goals, not just, we're going to meet on August 15th. Hey, Damien, just get it to Pat far enough in advance so Pat has time to do it. Actually, you have Pat and Damien give dates right now that they shoot for. And I apologize for putting pressure on Damien and Pat, but my experience wearing your hat, Mr. Chairman, that really worked well.
No, I don't think we have a choice at this point because
I'm with you. Let's do it. Yeah.
I don't think anybody really wants to prolong this anymore.
You and me both.
There you go. So guys, between Pat and Damien, what are your thoughts on timing that we can get plans into Pat, and then Pat can come back to Damien, and then literally we hash it out at the last meeting.
So I believe I can probably get responses to comments, from Pat, his responses to comments and updated plans. If I could probably, I'd say either, let's put my deadline as the 23rd of this month, June 23rd.
23rd of this month. Really? Corey?
That would be responses to Pat Brennan's comments specifically.
Pat Brennan's comments only. All right, we'll see that. I'm going to watch we've got a whole bunch in there between the water department, the sewer department, the police department, Pat Brennan.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to respond to all of it. You've also got letters from the abutters that need to be addressed to some degree, sir. So
could we? I want to give Pat ample time to do his follow-up review, and then also give me time to also respond back to, if there is any additional. I don't think that, from Pat's letter, there were, comments, and, some of them are simple curb changes and stuff to that extent. So I'd like to be, as far as setting a deadline for Pat's comments and allowing him to make response back to that, that would be in that fashion. Then would there be an expectation on the other end of Pat to all, with the other members, the plethora of the, sewer commission, again, we received those letters just hours before the meeting as well.
No, believe me, I understand. This is what it comes.
So, if we were to respond to those as well, is there an expectation to also receive additional comments back for those?
This is what it comes down to. You respond to everything that we've got so far: sewer, water, police. Who else did we have? I'm going to get Dave Taylor's comments in writing very soon. You've got letters from the general public that you kind of need to address. All right. I want you to address all of that information. I want you to get it to Pat. Pat has the last word. That's it. And then we go from there. Because again, you don't have to give us final drawings. We know this. You don't have to give this board final drawings. You just have to make sure we as the board have to know that you're addressing the situations. And in the end, if Pat still finds some things that need to be done, well, it gets conditioned as such if we so choose to approve the project. So my suggestion is take everything into consideration: sewer, water, police. Once I get Dave Taylor, I get Dave Taylor. Every single letter that the general public has put into play. Honestly, you guys have been, you started with, didn't finish it, but you started with the Conservation Commission. Look at what they're saying. Take it all into consideration, address it all if you have to, and then Pat Brennan reviews everything and he gets the last word. Pat, you okay with that?
Well, the board gets the last word, but.
Well, you get the last word from an engineering standpoint. You know, from an engineering standpoint, we get obviously we get the last word. But from an engineering standpoint, from a review standpoint, are you okay with that course of action?
Yeah. And if Damien could get it to me 3 weeks ahead of that meeting, whenever it is, that would give me a week. If I can turn it all around in a week, then the board has 2 weeks to review it prior to the meeting.
Okay, so let's talk the 15th then. That gives more than enough time for Conoco to do everything that they got to do when it comes to trip counts and you know, the traffic engineering and addressing all the different comments, reviewing every single letter that the general public has put together, addressing every single comment to some degree, even if it's just a letter that needs to be read. All right, that's what I need. Mr. Dimitrick, do you think you can do that?
So per what Pat said, if he needs 3 weeks, then our drop deadline will make is the 18th, which would be 4 weeks ahead of that 15th meeting.
Okay.
And I intend on getting Pat stuff ahead of that information.
And that's fine. You've already had our permission to be able to talk back and forth with Pat, assuming he's okay with that as well.
And Walter, you know, and Mike and Rick, I'd also like your opinions if you guys believe anything else as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't mean to keep dropping it on you, Damien. I apologize. Attorney Marioni, are you happy with so far with this?
I think that's great, and I'm happy to drop it all on Damien.
That's a question.
That works great. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Galley, talk to me, sir.
Quick question. I don't know. You were saying the 3 weeks for the applicant to give it to Pat Brennan, and then Pat Brennan would have a week, before the meeting to go over it, and how? Not that I'm a voting member, but how far?
If we're looking at the 15th, let's say we're looking at August 15th.
Yeah.
All right. 3 weeks prior to the meeting would be basically, let's call it the 21, 2, 3.
Yeah.
If
August 1st
would be July 24th, 25th, something like that.
20, yeah.
That's bad. That's what I'm looking at here. So 3 weeks, if we deal with the 15th, 1, 2, 3 weeks prior to that would be the 25th. So basically it would be nice if on the 24th, Pat could open his email and be inundated with shingle mail.
Damien actually said he'd do it a week before that. He said he'd do it for
That's
the
even
18th.
better.
Yeah.
That's even better. So if that works, and if Pat is okay with it, if the applicant is okay with it, then there you go. There are our dates. All right. A minimum of 1, 2, get it to Pat, a minimum of the 25th of July.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I make a motion?
Yeah, you can make a motion as go for it.
Settle this. Like to make a motion to continue shingle mills to 6:30 on August 15th, 2023. All information will be to Pat Brennan no later than the 21st of July.
25th. 25th is actually 3 weeks. If you want to make it the 21st, make it the 21st.
The 21st,
Your motion, I apologize.
the 21st of July,
Okay.
so he can review it. And he can get it to us by August 4th. That'll give us 14 days, roughly.
1, 2, 3,
Oh.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
10
12.
days.
Yeah, it gives us a good 10 days. That's fine. Destroy my weekend. Thanks.
That's my motion.
Okay, I got a motion.
So that's the 15th.
That's the 15th of our.
15th at 6:30
Do you have to state via Zoom?
by Zoom.
Yeah, by Zoom. So I got a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
I think
got
you
a
need,
second. There we
you
go.
need an
There's-
extension too.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
Sorry,
give it to you tomorrow morning if it's necessary. I have a note here. I'll check on it and send it over if necessary.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, we got a motion, we got a second. Any other discussion? All right, so Mr. Tanzi, roll call, Mr. Tanzi,
Yes.
myself is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
All right, we got one more shot. We got one more shot and then we'll figure it out.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
No problem, thank you, everybody. for
Have a
coming.
good night.
All right, now we got, what else we got here? I got that, I got that to do. Go over here, is there anything else to tell me? Number 3, Deb, is there any non-deliberative announcements and scheduling?
No, nothing. We'll do the board reorg on the 20th of June.
All right. And Mr. Galley, you're all set up for that, sir?
Yes, all my ducks are in a row.
Rock and roll, sir. All right, it'd be nice to have a full board again. All right, is there anything else to talk about? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I guess nobody wants to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We go, we got in a second.
Second it.
There we go, roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Myself is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Done. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Didn't
Have a
ask
good night,
Mr.
everyone.
Baker.